The Real Miami Vice. Dive deep into the cutthroat world of powerboating that ruled 1980s Miami. From the thrilling roar of speedboats to the shadowy underworld of the 1980s, Don Aronow's life was a high-octane blend of glamour, danger, and mystery. A legendary boat racer, visionary entrepreneur, and enigmatic figure, Aronow's legacy is as tumultuous as the waters he conquered. Join us as we dive into the riveting story of a man who lived life at full throttle and met a tragic, untimely end. This is the rise and fall of Don Aronow. Don Aronow was a bona fide celebrity. He didn't maintain an ostentatious profile, have an entourage, or drive a Rolls-Royce, although he did own a few.
Ocean racers are fascinated with cars, anything with speed, I guess.
But people knew who he was wherever he went. If they didn't know him, his affable character, openness, and magnetism would give his status away within seconds.
In this race, one boat was quickly singled out as most likely to succeed. The Cigarette, owned and driven by American Don Aronow.
The company that he kept was larger than life. From white-knuckle boat rides with the Beatles to sustained friendships with the kings of Spain and Jordan, Shah of Iran, Haitian dictator Jean-Claude Duvalier, and George W. Bush. Aside from fostering physical attraction and camaraderie, his need to win manifested first and foremost as shrewd business sense, which he exercised throughout his boat-building endeavors.
The boats the Customs Service uses to catch drug smugglers were built for customs by convicted drug dealers who used laundered drug money to buy the boat company.
Apparently, Don Aronow was widely known on both sides of the law. Society's upper crust and its underbelly were lured by his boats and his style. He even built a boat for one of his new friends, then Vice George Bush.
His friendships with everyone from police chiefs to was widely known. He was the father of that industry. Aronow was to boats what Ford was to automobiles as far as offshore racing goes.
The Cigarette was the progeny of Don Aronow's vision of a race boat. Made of a newer technology called fiberglass, she was the result of the first collaboration between the legendary team of marine architect Walt Walters, marine engineer Jim Wynn, and engine impresario Sam Sarah. Don Aronow referred to his team as the formula for success, the inspiration behind the name of his new boat company. 1965. Don Aronow beat the competition with his new design, Don Z, that was 10 feet wide and 28 feet long, designed by Jim Wynn and Walt Walters. A flat-deck version of the boat followed later that year. In 1966, Don Aronow built himself a new 27-foot race boat, which he named Maltese Magnum. The boat became world champion, and Don Aronow built a small factory to build more boats just like it. Magnum Marine was founded. The Cigarette was a 32-foot carry. The hull was designed by Harry Schoell and was a modification of the very successful full-height 28-foot Magnum. Aronow had three, two in America and one in Europe. Aronow called the 32-foot boat a carry because of his non-compete clauses with all the other boat companies that he had sold. He never honored any of them. Several Cigarette models have been developed between 1969 and 1973, resulting in the classic Cigarette 35-foot. With its beam of 8 foot and length of 35 foot, it obtained a ratio of 4.375 to 1, just what they were looking for all these years. It served as a blueprint for a lot of subsequent deep V racing hulls, such as the Cigarette 36, the Squadron 12, Apache, the Apache 41, the Cigarette 39, and a split version of the hull, 39-foot Blue Thunder catamaran. In 1985, Aronow's big league connections paid off. His USA Racing Company landed a $1.7 million deal to build chase boats for the U.S. Customs Service. The high-speed catamarans were designed to intercept drug smugglers off the Florida coast. Aronow landed the no-bid contract as if he were the only game in town. The boats were called Blue Thunder. But not long after the first boat hit the water, Aronow quietly sold the company and the government contract to this man, Ben Kramer, one of Miami's biggest drug smugglers.
Here's your leader in the open class, Ben Kramer. He manufactures boats.
Ben Kramer, as we know, owned a powerboat company, Apache. It's common knowledge that Mr. Kramer was involved in the smuggling business.
Customs now had a deal with the devil, trying to catch drug smugglers with boats supplied by a man who smuggled drugs. It is now known that Ben Kramer and his father used freshly laundered drug dollars to buy Aronow's company and the customs boat contract.
When we looked at the money and traced the money back, we began to draw the common denominator of the offshore boat business and, by inference, marijuana smuggling.
The deal in which Aronow sold the government's contract turned out to be a part of one of the biggest money laundering schemes ever uncovered. The investigation ended with convictions for Ben Kramer, his father Jack, and their attorney, Melvin Kessler. Don Aronow knowingly received hundreds of thousands of dollars in laundered drug money for the sale of his company. Then Aronow raked in lots of cash for boats he'd never built.
The IRS was looking at Aronow very closely at the time of his death, as was DEA. And indeed, it now is known that there were strong reasons to believe that the boat business was a beautiful money laundering scam.
In January 1987, the IRS seized records of Aronow's sale of his company to the Kramers. Just one day before he would have been subpoenaed to appear before a grand jury, Aronow was murdered. At around 3:30 p.m. on February 3, 1987, after a short day at the office, Don was fatally shot in his white Mercedes-Benz SL. It had the body color hardtop, American spec headlights, and a front plate proudly displaying USA Racing's crest. Its front wheels were pointed ever so slightly toward the edge of the road. 6 shots were fired from a Lincoln Town car, either dark blue or black with a green bumper sticker on the back. It was probably a rental, as indicated by the Z in the license plate. 4 of those shots ended up in Don. 1 ricocheted around the car before bouncing off of the Rolex that was presented to him by the company itself, while the other grazed his side and ended up on the floor mat. His legs stiffened and jammed the Mercedes accelerator to the floor. The 5.6-liter V8 revved to its limiter and stayed there, letting out the scream that Don himself couldn't. It was in neutral, not park, an odd gear to put an automatic transmission in, so the car didn't move. An Apache employee was first on the scene and shut the ignition off.
He's a perfect gentleman. He was a man's man. Kind, happy-go-lucky. I don't think he had an enemy in the world.
When Metro-Dade homicide detectives arrived, they found Aronow's bullet-riddled white Mercedes.
A celebrity gunned down in front of dozens of witnesses in a gangland-style killing.
For a white male in his late 30s, dark complexion.
Twice every hour, law enforcement officers are hearing this description of the man police believe killed Don Aronow. Late this afternoon, police released this composite drawing. Yesterday, the 59-year-old powerboat racing king was gunned down on the street he is credited with building. Witnesses say the murderer sat in his black car here yesterday for a long time, waiting to ambush Don Aronow as he left work. Law enforcement experts say the murder has all the earmarks of a contract killing.
In this area, it's conducive of drug trafficking hit by Colombian traffickers.
After a 4-year investigation, police arrested 41-year-old hitman Bobby Young for Aronow's murder. Young had already been indicted in Florida for another murder and was serving time in Oklahoma on a cocaine charge. His lawyer in the cocaine case? Melvin Kessler, the same attorney involved with the Kramers when they bought Aronow's company. Later this year, Bobby Young will stand trial for Aronow's murder.
U.S. Customs, sir. How many people are on the vessel?
He liked to cut your throat in a business deal sometimes just for the fun of it. It was competition, just like racing. It was competition, and he'd laugh sometimes.